I'm sure we've all seen these kind of tweets that do the rounds before major international tournaments where experts from the past predicted England squads for future tournaments and got them completely wrong. Well, Football Manager can't get it that wrong. Surely. I've gone back in time, picked up some older versions of Football Manager, and we're going to see what they think England's squad for Euro 2024 would have been. I guess based on who had the best potential abilities at the time. Let's go and play around with some old versions of FM. And we're starting things off on FM 14 because I figured that's about as far back as we could go without all of the players being completely unrecognisable. 10 years in the past, an England team managed by Sami Hyypiä. Now, obviously, this is going to be partly full of new gens, but there should also be some recognisable names in there. I've got to remember where all the buttons were on this 10-year-old version of the game. So this would be England's Euros starting 11. So, I mean, I know who all of the back four and the goalkeeper are. You go a little bit further forward and the names start to become a little bit less recognisable. But as you can see, the date for this is June 2024. This is the Euros that are going on. So the goalkeeper, Jack Butland, who is contracted to Stoke. So he did leave. I was going to say he never left Stoke. He left. He went to Blackburn briefly, but then went back to Stoke. Interestingly, that he's only ever played 2 seasons of Premier League football, at least in recent history. So been playing regularly in the Championship, but is still England's number one, albeit only with 19 caps. So I'm guessing there was a more regular England goalkeeper who's maybe taken his spot. Alex McCarthy is a name that I remember from the past. How many caps has he got? 5. So it's not him. Has Joe Hart just retired or something in this version, do we think? Andy, right, we're finding Joe Hart because he's the guy I would have expected to, because he would have been at his absolute prime in 2014 when, 137 England caps for Joe Hart off of Manchester City, who presumably at 37 years old, has now retired from international football and lost his spot in the Man City team over the last couple of years. So that's why Butland's in, because Joe Hart, after his 137 England caps, is maybe a little too old now. But then your back four has Luke Shaw, who is at Dortmund. So I think he'd gone to Manchester United. Oh, he hadn't. So FM 14, he hadn't yet gone to Manchester United, so went from Southampton to Manchester City, presumably didn't pick up an injury in this version of history, and did a tour of Man City, Barcelona, and then Dortmund. And Luke Shaw, now aged 28, only 48 England caps. I'm not sure how many he's got in real life. That doesn't feel like a lot, though, based on that career. And then you've got John Stones at Atletico. Had he gone to Everton even at this point? He had gone to Everton, never went to Manchester City, though. So they got Luke Shaw instead of John Stones. Man City fans, are you accepting that trade? Probably not. But stayed at Everton possibly a little longer than he did in real life. I don't know exactly when he went to Man City, but then went to Arsenal. And after 4 years at Arsenal, went to Atletico. He's now got 92 England caps and at age 30, having a jolly nice time partnering Phil Jones at centre-back, who's at Manchester City. So you actually got Phil Jones rather than John Stones. Did he go to United? He did. So left Blackburn, went to Manchester United. Another one, presumably, managed to avoid getting any kind of significant injuries, because after 3 years at Manchester United, went to Paris Saint-Germain, where he spent 4 years before then heading to Manchester City, where he's been a regular starter at Manchester City ever since. 32 years old now, 117 England caps to his name. This is very much how things could have been if injuries hadn't have wrecked people. I'm surprised Jack Wilshere's sat there on the bench. And then at right back, you've got Nathaniel Chalobah, 95 England caps for him. He's also at Manchester City. So Manchester City forming a majority of the England back four here. Just John Stones never went there. So he stayed at Chelsea for a long time, but then went to Manchester City and is England's right back with lots and lots of caps. That guy presumably is a new gen. Yeah, he's a new gen. For Reading is interesting. Ravel Morrison turned into a real boy in this version of history. Only 24 caps. This was his career shape. So Manchester United, West Ham, that's the transfer he did in real life, wasn't it? But it looks like he actually kind of made it at West Ham in this version of history. Went to Stoke, then Zenit, and Sevilla. Never been at a real top club, but 24 England caps. And I mean, England just have a problem on the left-hand side, apparently. Will Hughes, I mean, I remember back on older versions of FM, Will Hughes was the English wonder kid to get, and clearly this is still very much that era. So from Derby, went to Norwich, then on to Chelsea. Now got 71 England caps at 29 years old. And like I say, I would normally expect him to be partnering Jack Wilshere in midfield, but he's actually got Jordan Rossiter, who I think is a real boy. He doesn't have a photograph, but I remember that name. So he presumably would have been like a 16, 17-year-old at Liverpool at the start of this save, hence no photo. Came through at Liverpool, had a few loans, but has established himself as a Liverpool starter over the last few years. And now with 21 England caps at 27 years old, he's one of the younger players in the squad. And then on the right-hand side, you've got James Ward-Prowse off of Southampton. So in this world, he never left. Southampton never got relegated. Ward-Prowse has played nearly 400 games for them and another 40 for England, where he starts on the right-hand side of midfield and then up front. Oh, this guy's not a new gen. He's a real face as well. So Joe Nuttall of Reading would have been another one who was a very young teenager at the start of FM14. They would have been knocking around in the Manchester City youth team, then went on loan to Reading a couple of times before going to Fulham and then joining Reading permanently. Reading, what a different world this is for Reading. Presumably an established Premier League team, a couple of players in England's Euro 2024 squad, and an English striker who's scoring goals for fun for them in the Premier League. This guy is one of the top strikers in the Premier League. 22 England caps, 11 goals. I wonder what happened to him in real life. And in this version of history, what on earth happened to Harry Kane? Because he's not made it. We've got other recognisable faces down on the bench. You've got Eric Dyer off of Paris Saint-Germain, who's got 22 England caps. Nathaniel Klein of Southampton, 53 caps for him. Tom Ince making it into the England team, 54 England caps for Tom Ince. And then there is Jack Wilshere, who got 112 England caps, still at Arsenal, presumably had a lovely old career. And Raheem Sterling of Liverpool. Did he ever leave? No, Raheem Sterling just doing his entire career at Liverpool, 96 England caps. So the big question is, Harry Kane. What on earth is Harry Kane doing in this version of the future? He's the big obvious guy who's missing. Joe Nuttall having Harry Kane's career. Harry Kane, at 30 years old, plays for Bristol City. He has 0 England caps. He never made the breakthrough at Tottenham. So had his real life loans at Leyton Orient and Millwall, at Norwich, Leicester, but then still couldn't break through at Tottenham, went on loan to Fulham, Middlesbrough before eventually joining Watford, where even with the superpowers of having Watford behind him in Football Manager, couldn't make a name for himself, went to Reading and got stuck behind Joe Nuttall, presumably. Nuttall's ruined his life. He played he had a goal a game record at Reading, but never got back in the team and then went to Bristol City down in League Two. Harry Kane is a League Two striker, admittedly a League Two striker, earning £8,000 a week, which is quite impressive in this version of history. But yeah, Harry Kane did not make it. I need to find out what Joe Nuttall's story is in real life. So this is real life Joe Nuttall on Wikipedia. So still came through at Manchester City, but never actually got a professional contract with them. Went to Aberdeen, had a few loans from there, had a spell at Blackburn where he never really scored any goals. Same at Blackpool. Then had the stench of the Cobblers attached to him. Luckily, only played one game for them before the best season of his career, goal-scoring wise, was at Scunthorpe. But he then left, went to Oldham, and has now spent this season on loan at Cheltenham. Has one England C cap to his name. Harry Kane is living this man's life, and you'll never convince me otherwise. So we've now moved 5 years further forward. This is FM19, so theoretically should be a bit more accurate, and you can see straight away in this one, Harry Kane is England's top player. So he hasn't become a League Two player in this version of history. Let's have a look at the team that they've taken to the Euros in this one. Certainly a much more familiar feel about it. I mean, there's a version of reality where that back four could actually be the one that starts at the Euros for England. I mean, it's unlikely that Trent's going to get in ahead of Walker, and I don't think Joe Gomez is starting centre-back. Chilwell didn't get in the squad, did he? But could have done in a different world. But Pickford in goal, Chilwell, Stones, Gomez, and Trent at the back. The midfield certainly becomes a little bit more questionable. Obviously, at this point, FM19, Jude Bellingham, I don't think is a thing that exists yet, so he's not emerged. But interesting to see no Declan Rice in there either. I think Declan Rice was on the top players list before, so is he injured? That's a Declan Rice of Arsenal. Only 8 England caps, so did make it to Arsenal, much cheaper than in real life. But only 8 England caps, and it looks like Declan Rice is actually a centre-back rather than a midfielder in this reality. I remember those days when you'd always sign Declan Rice on Football Manager and make him a centre-back. So Eric Dyer, Lewis Cook and Dele Alli in midfield for England. So Eric Dyer with 98 England caps, still at Tottenham. Lewis Cook, 36 caps. He went to Chelsea. Never really worked that way out for him in real life, did it? And then Dele Alli, the one that got away as far as England are concerned, I guess. How different things could have been. Dele Alli with 96 England caps and a very productive Tottenham career because he just carried on playing as well as he was playing back in FM19 forever. Where are these guys ended up club-wise? So Pickford's still at Everton. Chilwell has gone to Manchester City. John Stones is still at City. Gomez is at Liverpool. So this is much closer to reality. Trent is at Liverpool. And then your front three is Harry Kane on the left, Rashford on the right, and who on earth is Sonny McDonald? Are you a new gen Sonny McDonald? He is. So we've had a new gen, a proper like wonder kid new gen, who's just emerged and got into that team and pushed Harry Kane out onto the left-hand side of a front three. It's good to see that even the game AI knows that the meta for FM19 was do a flat front three. But yeah, Harry Kane, who can play a little bit in midfield, still at Tottenham, presumably still never won anything. Can we have a look at your milestones? Competition wins. Oh my word, he's got silverware. Spurs have won a Champions League. This version of history is absurd. I won't stand for it. But Rashford on the right. Interesting to see Eddie Nketiah is in. No sign of Bukayo Saka. Obviously, no Jude Bellingham either. Do these players even exist? So Bellingham, I don't know when he would have started to appear. Saka, no. So these guys are clearly a little bit too young to be in this England team. Anyone in here who you really wouldn't expect to be part of the conversation? I mean, Morgan Rogers, only 21 years old. So, I mean, he did well to make the cut and even be in the game. But he's a player I've signed multiple times. Phil Foden's there. Phil Foden, 34 caps. You've also got Raheem Sterling knocking around. Presumably a few more of these are new gens. You've got Jadon Sancho, who I guess he's moved to Manchester United. Actually worked out in this version of reality. Interesting to see that it was kind of the same deal at kind of the same time, which is remarkable. Good work, Football Manager. It predicted that bit accurately and also predicted him never really playing for England as well. That's some I mean, he did play more for Manchester United than he did in reality, but that's quite impressive. Quite impressive work from Football Manager there. Ward-Prowse, not a starter on this version, and also not at Southampton anymore. So went to Schalke, went to Spurs, went to West Brom, and as a result, only 22 England caps for him. And I don't think there's anyone else really obviously missing. Where's Ivan Toney in this world? I mean, as a Peterborough fan, Ivan Toney's still at Posh. Oh, I mean, well, let's jump forward to another version of FM. That's silly. So FM21 now, only 3 years ago, takes us to when the last Euros happened. So surely this one can't be too wildly inaccurate. This is an England team managed by Jose Mourinho, captained by Harry Kane. Jordan Henderson's still in there as vice captain, and the key player is Raheem Sterling. Is that all the way things were back when Euro 2020 was happening? I'm not sure I remember. I don't think I expected history to turn out exactly like that. And this is just 3 years later how we expected the England team to look, apparently, according to FM. If anything, this is further away than the FM19 version were, which is really interesting. Obviously, we're not going to talk about that guy. But Aaron Ramsdale in goal. There's no sign, actually, of Jordan Pickford anywhere. So FM19 still had Pickford in, but FM21 is like, nah, Pickford's done. Doesn't even play for Everton anymore. How bad was Jordan Pickford's last Euros for that to be his outcome? But Aaron Ramsdale, West Ham's Aaron Ramsdale is England's #1 goalkeeper. Nick Pope of Burnley, the backup, and Joe Bursick, who I remember being on loan at Peterborough briefly. He's the third choice goalkeeper for England, contracted to Preston. You've then got a back four of James Justin. Still only 26 years old. What is James Justin doing with his life now? Presumably not playing for Bayern Munich and England. At right back, you've got Tariq Lamptey, who I think is another one who was affected by injuries at Brighton, wasn't he? He was out for a long, long time of injury. Fikayo Tomori, who, of course, effectively ended his England career by having the cheek to go and play somewhere outside of England, so everybody forgot he existed. But in this version of reality, he starts at the back alongside John Stones, which does seem like a very sensible way of doing things as far as I'm concerned. We do have Jude Bellingham in this version of the future, still at Borussia Dortmund and playing in a much deeper role than I guess we would expect him to be playing for England this summer. Certainly not the role he's been playing for Real Madrid. I mean, if England turned up at the Euros this year with a double pivot of Jude Bellingham and Phil Foden, I'd be alarmed. I mean, I don't know how you'd feel about that. I would be quite alarmed by that, but clearly that's the plan. Where's Declan Rice? Why does Football Manager not include Declan? Where? It's only 3 years ago. Declan Rice was the man at the Euros. Him and Calvin Phillips just sat there as that. Why is he not in? Only 21 England caps. Absolutely bonkers. Played a year in the Championship. Never left. Bizarre. Not even in the squad. Declan Rice. Baffling. Almost as baffling as Ben White being in the squad. So he's still at Brighton and presumably never fell out with anyone in the England management system. Then you've got, we're not going to talk about who's up front, but we've got Rashford, Mason Mount, who is still at Chelsea. And remember him at the last Euros. Oh, goodness me. And then Raheem Sterling. No Harry Kane in the starting 11, which is interesting. Harry Kane still at Spurs, 90 England caps, but clearly just lost his place. And then if we have a look down the bench, we got anything else surprising? Tammy Abraham, my boy Tammy, still at Chelsea, and an England squad regular. Saka, 33 England caps, but not getting in ahead of Rashford or Sterling that is terrifying. But that kind of was the way things were back then. Who's Lloyd Kelly? He looks like a real boy at Bournemouth. I don't even remember him. Curtis Jones is in, Calvert-Lewin, Ben Godfrey. Again, so many of these players, injuries have just changed this course of history for them. So it is quite interesting to see who was highly thought of just a few years ago. But there's nobody in there who is, there's no new gens in there, is there? It's just a very, very different version of what you would expect to be seen from largely the same player pool. Because I'm looking down that squad thinking, well, there's nobody really obviously missing, apart from like Pickford and Rice, I guess, would be the two. Very interesting. I'm glad that I think the team we're likely to play is going to be better than that one. Goodness me. All of which brings us to FM24, the current version of the game. This one has got to be bang on, right? This is a new FM24 save with the latest patches. This can't be that far away from reality, surely. Let's have a look at the team. Ramsdale's in goal. Ramsdale is in goal. He's not played for Arsenal, but Ramsdale is in goal. Pickford sat there on the bench. Nick Pope as your third choice. And then a back four. What was the sentence I just said? That back four, I can confidently say, not one of those players are going to be starting for England in the back four in the Euros. That is baffling. The rest of the team, defensively, no idea what's going on there. Everything else, I don't think too many of us are going to be too upset about that. Mainu and Rice, Foden, Bellingham, Saka, Kane. You know what? This end of the pitch, I take that. What's happened here? He's not in the squad. Is he in? I don't think he's in the squad. And I don't expect either of them to start. Where are the actual defenders? Where's John Stones is there? Harry Maguire's there. Luke Shaw's there. Where's Kyle Walker? He's not there. What's happened to? Presumably he must just be injured. you would think. No, just not called up. So Trent's there. Ben White's still in. Phillips is there. Mount's there. This is the January update. Oh, there is Walker. He is there. He's just not in the team. This can't be the team. This must have just been a team for a friendly. That's the team for this friendly against Argentina. That can't be the team that they're actually going to be planning on using. Surely. That's fascinating. But you know what? That's the most sensible front six I've seen anyone suggest anywhere. And if that's the front six we use, there is an argument that it won't really matter what happens behind him, because that front six is as good as anything any other nation can put out there. That rips anybody apart. I could cope with that. And there you go, boys and girls. That is how accurately Football Manager predicts England's starting 11 and squad for Euro 2024. If you want me to go back and drill down in a bit more detail and look at other nations, let me know. I'm going to need a load of likes on the video to do that. But if it's popular enough and enough of you ask for it, we can go back in and look at some of the other nations as well and have a little play around. And if you want me to do a series on the Euros, which I have done from time to time in the past, again, you need to make your voices heard. Let me know. We could maybe do a little weekend series during the Euros where I go and win it with England, maybe. Wouldn't that be nice? But I need to know you want it. So if you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.